Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission of the City of Moreno Valley. I now call this meeting to order on May 28th, 2020 at 7:04 p.m. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Brugueras?
Here.
Commissioner Stefan?
Present.
Commissioner Harris?
Here.
Commissioner DeJournette?
Here.
Commissioner Sims?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Baker?
Here.
Chairperson Corsick.
Present. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Stefan.
Okay, will everybody stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Stefan. We're now going to move to the approval of the agenda. If you'd like to make a motion, please raise your hand. Anyone?
Commissioner Sims would like to make a motion.
Commissioner Sims,
Yes.
are you going to motion to approve the agenda?
Yes, I gotta make a motion. We approve the agenda for May 28th,
Thank you.
2020.
Do we have a second?
From Commissioner DeJournette?
Commissioner DeJournette?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brugueras?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefan?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Harris? For the record, Commissioner Harris is present via Zoom. Commissioner Sims?
Yes.
Commissioner DeJournette?
Yes,
Vice Chairperson Baker? Vice Chairperson Baker?
Yes.
Chairperson Corsick.
Yes, and the motion carries. Public comment procedures. During the public comment period for each item, as well during the public comment for period for items not on the agenda, the clerk will call upon each person who is on the Zoom application to ask if they wish to speak. Each member of the public wishing to speak will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak on any agenda item. If you do not wish to make public comments, please be aware that if you are attending this meeting through the Zoom platform, you will be displayed as a speaker. Those wishing to view the meeting without making comments can do so online via the city's website at www.moval.org/MV3LIVE. The link is available through the city's website. It can also be viewed on YouTube Live and on channel MVTV3. The next item is for public comments on any item not on the agenda. Are there any speakers?
At this time, I'm going to ask if you would like to make public comments to please raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button in Zoom or by dialing *9 on your telephone. Speakers will be unmuted one at a time. There are several ways to raise your hand in Zoom. If you are participating with your mobile device, click the More button, then select Raise Hand. If you are connected to Zoom via audio or your telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. The final way is to move your cursor to the bottom screen, the Zoom screen. A toolbar will appear. Click on the participants icon. A participant list will open it. On the bottom of the participant list, there is a Raise Hand button. Please click that to raise your virtual hand. Once you are permitted to speak, you can view your remaining time in the broadcast and timer feed. After you have concluded your public comments, you may wish to continue the meeting live on YouTube, MV3, or streaming the city website. Thank you.
Do you have a speaker?
The first speaker I'm going to call is a phone number. It is 951-924-0816. If you would like to speak. I do apologize. Give me just a moment.
Massive projects like the World Logistics Center will impact communities all along State Route 60, the I-10, the I-215, easily from Chino to Banning, down to Paris. Anyone who lives along these routes in both Riverside and San Bernardino counties should be encouraged to comment to protect their health. We should not discourage them. We're perhaps approving a project that impacts all of them. Your other projects on tonight's agenda wouldn't do that, but the World Logistics Center would, and therefore that's why people comment from outside of our city. Since all of you have read the World Logistics Center environmental documents, you know this about the massive impacts. This is also why people from 3 state agencies commented on the World Logistics Center, and none of them live in Moreno Valley. There's the Fish and Wildlife, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I sent you that letter. Hopefully you read it. The California Air Resources Board, they're the ones that protect our health from pollution, significant pollution, like what the World Logistics Center has sent out. And also the State Attorney General's office sent you a letter in combining with the Air Resources Board. They do not live in Moreno Valley, but they know the huge impacts of the World Logistics Center and how it will not only impact Moreno Valley, but a huge area of the Inland Empire, and also the San Jacinto Wildlife Area, where the state has already spent $80 million in taxpayer money to bring that about. This is why you should be pleased that people are speaking from other areas, so that you have this wide understanding of the World Logistics Center impacts on the health of the residents of not only Moreno Valley, but of surrounding areas. And I would hope if a city near us had a project similar to the World Logistics Center that would impact the health of Moreno Valley residents, that you would encourage Moreno Valley residents to comment on that project for their own health, and that you would lead the charge in commenting on that project of another city that would impact the health of our residents. I thank you very much. Just 1 minute, or not a minute, but a little bit. One of the notes that was in the Attorney General's letter reads, the final EIR, the World Logistics Center, continues to rely on environmentally irresponsible and legally flawed arguments to avoid properly analyzing and mitigating the project's enormous greenhouse gas impact.
I'm sorry, but you're over your time. Thank you very much. In the future, if we only have your phone number, would you please give us your name? Because we don't know who you are other than a phone number. So thank you very, very much. The next speaker.
Next speaker we have is Carrie Fenn.
Okay.
If we can unmute Carrie Fenn, please.
Carrie, we just
Hello.
need to go ahead and accept the unmute. Oh, thank you. Looks like you got
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to comment on the land use plan for the general plan regarding developers, the specific industry, and its impact on our city. Per the City News Service updated on May 23rd of 2020, the unemployment rate in Riverside County was 15.3% in April. The chosen industry that has been given quite a bit of support by our city, county, and region was not resilient enough to even dampen the impact of the pandemic. We have over 4,000 warehouses in the county and close to 200 within the city. I think that needs to be a
Excuse me,
consideration by.
Carrie,
Yes.
are you talking about the general plan that's on the agenda for tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay, this is the comments not on the agenda. You'll have to wait till that comes up. I'm very sorry.
Okay, well then I have comments that are not on the agenda.
Okay, you have 2 minutes and 5 seconds left.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm a little confused because when you talk at city council, they require you to speak right up front and they only give you 2 minutes. So your procedures are vastly different than city council. So that's what makes the confusion when you speak at various different city agencies. But I'd also like you to consider the comments from last week about Cannabis Row, AKA Sunnymead Boulevard. I don't want the Planning Commission to do a drive-by on the existing businesses on Sunnymead Boulevard. As we all saw in LA last week, 11 firefighters were hospitalized because LA chose to develop a cannabis row and an explosion occurred in one of those businesses. And a comment was made by a planning commissioner last week that it was better to have a legal cannabis store in an area than burned out buildings. And I understand that comment because obviously Sunnymead Boulevard does need revitalization. But I also want to bring to your attention that over 15 years ago, the city and the planning commission decided that Alessandro Boulevard was going to be this beautiful entrance to our city. And then about 10 years ago, another planning commission decided it was going to be Sunnymead Boulevard. And now, through your general plan, as well as the city council, we're looking at building a city center. Please don't do a drive-by on Sunnymead Boulevard. Support the businesses that are there and make sure that we do not have a similar occurrence, such as what LA has done, trying to capture all of the cannabis in one location. And as another speaker said last week, developing this adults-only area where people are afraid perhaps to go and walk down the streets at night because all they see is cannabis after cannabis after cannabis store. And that will scare them away from the very valid businesses that have been on Sunnymead Boulevard for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers?
No, Madam Chair.
Not at this point.
Can we confirm with Mrs. Then that there isn't a second speaker with her? I know usually they're on a shared connection.
Robert, are you speaking tonight?
No, I'm fine.
No, Robert is not speaking, but thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the consent calendar. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and non-controversial and may be enacted by one motion unless a member of the commission requests that an item be removed for separate action. Items withdrawn for report or discussion will be heard after the public hearing items. Questions or comments from the public on a consent calendar matter are limited to 3 minutes per individual and must pertain to the subject under consideration. With this, we have item number 1, the minutes of the May 14th, 2020 meeting. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
At this time, if you would like to make public comment, please raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button in Zoom or by dialing *9 on your telephone. Speakers will be unmuted one at a time. Thank you. We have our first speaker, Tom Thornsley.
Okay.
Pardon me. Good evening, commissioners. Looking at the minutes that you're supposed to adopt, I don't think I've seen briefer minutes ever. There's not even a mention of any presentation. This is the item that's going to be appealed to the Planning Commission, and there's no form of discussion on your vote, your discussion of anything that took place during the meeting of 2 weeks ago. You have a great list of all the people who spoke, nothing with regards to what anyone might have spoken about or any major issues that might have been brought up. Kind of sad to see that staff didn't put together something a little more substantial for the public record, because anybody who would ever look back on this in history isn't going to know a thing about it. And I don't know how long you're going to keep your video feeds, but it's a pretty empty set of minutes regarding such a major project in the city that has a lot of contentious issues. Thank you.
Next speaker we have is Carrie Fenn.
Hello, can you hear me?
You're on.
Okay, thank you again. Okay, I think I'm on the right item this time. Is that correct?
We're on the agenda. I mean, the,
Yes, sir.
I mean,
Agenda item number 1.
no, I'm sorry. We are on the minutes of the last meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I will stop right here. My apologies. Okay. I'm
Okay,
still
it's the
trying to
next
keep up
one.
with you
It's the
guys.
next one, Ms. Dunn, yes. Anyone else?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any comments? If not, could we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I so move.
Commissioner Baker, second? Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Stefan seconds. All right, let's call for the vote.
Commissioner Brugaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Since I was a recusal on the last meeting, I don't know exactly what the correct vote would be.
Hi, this is Paul Early, Assistant City Attorney. I might be able to help you with that. With respect to the minutes, if you watched or were, you don't have to necessarily have participated, but if you're familiar with what occurred and you think the minutes are an accurate reflection of that, you can still vote on them.
Okay, I was told at the beginning that, you know, that I had to stay out of it, so I really haven't seen that meeting, so.
Then it would be
just to
appropriate to abstain from the minute vote at this time.
Okay, I abstain.
Commissioner DeJarnay, Commissioner DeJarnay,
Yes.
Commissioner Sims, Commissioner Sims,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Baker,
Yes.
Chairperson Corsick.
Yes. Okay, motion carried. Now we are going to the non-public hearing items. And the first item up is a discussion of the preliminary draft land use plan for the general plan update. I do want to mention to all of my fellow commissioners, this is a discussion only. We are not going to be voting on anything tonight. And when we finish the presentation, we will be asking questions. And we're going to ask the questions in the sequential order that the project is being presented. So if you take your notes carefully, we can all try and be on the same page and not all over the place with our questions. I thought I'd give you a heads up on that. So I do know the applicant is going to present this in a very logical manner with so many items. And so we're going to take them one by one at the very end for discussion. Okay, can we have the report, please?
Senior Planner Chris Ormsby will introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair Korczak, members of the Planning Commission. Staff provided a brief written staff report for this item, which included an overview of the general plan process. In the big picture, we are currently about 1/3 of the way through this process with the adoption of the general plan update scheduled for May 2021. This evening, the Planning Commission will be reviewing and commenting on the draft growth concepts and the preliminary land use plan. The city's general plan consultant will be providing the presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew Hill, principal of the firm of Diet and Batia, to provide the presentation. Andrew.
Great, thank you, Chris. I'm just going to share my screen with the presentation. So let me know when you can see that. Can everyone see my screen?
You see it, Andrew.
Great, fantastic. So good evening, commissioners. My name is Andrew Hill. I'm with Diet and Batia, the consulting firm that's helping the city with the general plan update. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to receive comments from the Planning Commission on the draft preferred plan concept ahead of presentation to the City Council in June. I have a quick presentation to set things up for you. I'd like to provide a quick status update on the project, to recap the work that we've done with the community and the GPAC over the past several months, developing a vision and concepts that could move that vision forward. And then I'll introduce the preferred plan concept itself. But let me start with a little bit of background for you. Since the general plan was last comprehensively updated in 2006, times have changed. As I'm sure you are well aware, baby boomers have now become seniors, and Moreno Valley is now a majority Hispanic community. And so as a society, we're becoming older and more diverse. The economy is changing as well. Think about the rise of internet shopping and how that's changing the need for physical stores in the community. But at the same time, office and workspaces are changing as more and more people are working from home, especially in these COVID times. There's new technologies that have come into widespread use since 2006. Think about smartphones, think about Uber and Lyft, which didn't exist 10 years ago. And plus on the horizon, there's self-driving cars. They're already cruising the streets of Arizona, and they're coming to California soon. And then of course, there's climate change as well. We're already experiencing more frequent and more severe wildfire, as well as higher average daily temperature in the summer. So all of these things represent trends that we need to respond to as we think about updating the general plan. At the same time, there's also a host of new state laws that have come online since 2006 that we need to address. For example, there's SB 375, which is intended to promote compact growth in areas of the state with good transportation access in order to avoid sprawl and to improve air quality. There's SB 743, which requires the use of vehicle miles traveled as a metric for evaluating the traffic impacts under CEQA. And then there's a host of new housing laws that are aimed at facilitating housing production to address the statewide affordability crisis. To accommodate its share of the regional housing need, Moreno Valley needs to plan for about 14,000 new homes over the next 10 years, including about 5,000 of these, which would need to be at higher densities. And so in view of all these emerging issues and these new state laws, we've begun a process to update the general plan, the housing element, and also to prepare a climate action plan. Phase one of the process was about understanding issues and opportunities. And as part of that work, the consultant team prepared a series of existing conditions reports, and we did extensive outreach to the community to develop a vision for Moreno Valley in 2040. Then in phase two, we explored different concepts for land use and transportation that could move the vision forward and help make it a reality. And all of that work has led to the preferred plan concept that we'll be reviewing with you here tonight. To date, close to 1,000 people have participated in the process, and we held 5 community workshops, including 4 in-person workshops and 1 virtual online workshop. We've conducted 2 citywide surveys. We did about 6 different pop-up events at different locations around the community in December, January, and February. And there's been additional opportunities for online input via email and other forums. The General Plan Advisory Committee has also met 4 times, and that process has allowed for additional public comment. So all of this has led us to a preferred plan concept. The purpose of that preferred plan concept is to respond to the issues and the opportunities identified in the existing conditions report, to help implement the vision for Moreno Valley in 2040 that's been developed with community input. And once this preferred plan concept is approved by the City Council, it will guide the update to the general plan and environmental review that follows. This is the map that shows the preferred plan concept. It incorporates key changes to the land use map based on community input. Altogether, this land use plan can accommodate the city's regional housing need, and over the next 20 years, it would allow for construction of about 20,000 new homes and the creation of about 40,000 new jobs. Implementing this plan would improve the city's jobs to housing ratio. Currently, it's about 0.78 jobs for every home in the community. But with this plan by 2040, that ratio would improve to 1-to-1. And that means a reduced need for people to commute long distances by car to jobs in other communities every day. And as a result, the corollary benefits would be improved air quality and more time for Moreno Valley residents to spend in the community with family and friends. The vision that resulted from community input and stakeholder input is really a 4-part vision for the future of the city. And that vision involves creating a dynamic economy with successful businesses in a range of different industry sectors. In order to do that, it will need to create a flexible land use framework that can accommodate job growth over time, and work on partnerships with local businesses and educational institutions for workforce training to make sure that local residents are qualified for the new jobs that will be created in the community. The vision also includes creating vibrant gathering places for community members. And this means town centers, 1 or more town centers where people can gather to shop, to dine, to do business, or to have fun. It includes sports and recreational facilities in the community for youth and for families in particular. And it ensures that making sure that all of these gathering places reflect the cultural diversity of the community. The third component of the vision statement is about livable neighborhoods that offer a range of different housing options that are affordable to people of all ages and at all stages of life. This also involves promoting safety on our streets, near schools, and at locations throughout the community. And it involves creating opportunities for active, healthy living. And the fourth component of the vision is about community identity. It's about building a sense of local pride and a sense of place so that Moreno Valley will be a place that people will choose to live, to work, and to play. So that vision came out of the phase 1 of the project. In phase 2 of the project, we developed with community input about 6 different concepts that could help to implement that vision and make it a reality in 2040. And so through a survey that was conducted in May, we solicited community input on these concepts. We also reviewed them and the results of the survey with the GPAC. And let me walk you through each of those concepts now. The first concept involves creating a downtown center that would serve as the primary hub and the focal point for the community with easy access from all parts of the city. It would also be a regional draw with activity day and night. It would feature architecture and design to rival anything in the region. And the range of uses and activities in the center would include possibly a performing arts center, civic, sports, and entertainment facilities, everything from potentially a top golf facility to theaters and libraries and places for people to spend their free time. The concept also involves the creation of a central park, a recreational opportunity, and it integrates the existing hospital complex and provides connections to Moreno Valley College, Lake Paris, and other local destinations. This concept really speaks to many aspects of the vision. It got really strong from a broad cross-section of the community. And it's a big, bold idea that would really advance several aspects of the vision, including a dynamic economy. This concept allows for the expansion of medical office spaces and supportive uses like shops and restaurants and hotels. It allows for the creation of a corporate campus in the downtown center, all of which would help to provide for that diversification of job opportunities and contribute to the dynamic economy of Moreno Valley 40. It also supports the concept of vibrant gathering places. It includes the town center concept and would provide sports and recreational opportunities, as I've mentioned, also with the Central Park. And then overall, it really does contribute to that fourth component of the vision statement, which is a strong community identity, because it would help to make Moreno Valley a destination city in the Inland Empire. So this is a big, bold idea. As I said, it really did enjoy strong support from a wide cross-section of the community. The challenge, though, is that it will take many years to fully realize this vision. The downtown center covers a very large area, almost 1,200 acres, with about 59 different property owners. And so it'll take careful consideration about the arrangement of uses and activities in that area and the connections between them. So fully realizing the vision would probably take longer than the 20-year timeframe of the general plan, but the plan can take steps to move that vision forward. And so to implement this concept, what we would do is to describe the different range of uses and activities envisioned. And then we create a concept diagram that shows where those different uses could be located within the larger 1,200-acre area. We provide projections for the population, the number of housing units, and the number of jobs that could be created over 20 years. And we suggest phasing for implementation. And we'd write policies as well that allowed for we had policy that required the preparation of an area plan and flexible zoning tools to guide subsequent development. And the policy would also allow for the reconfiguration or redesign of uses within the larger area, so long as that development program is not exceeded. And this would serve to provide flexibility to allow for accommodating market demand in the years to come. The second concept, the second key change is center mixed use. The idea here would be to create two community-oriented mixed-use centers that would complement the downtown center. They would be located, as you see on the map here, around the Moreno Valley Mall and around the district. The idea is to broaden the range of uses that would be allowed on those sites, and to create town centers that are visible from prominent at prominent locations visible from the freeway. This would serve to create distinctive gateways into the city and enhance the local sense of place. This center moves the vision forward on several levels. It helps to provide a wider range of housing choices that are affordable to people of all ages and income levels. It improves the community identity with those inviting gateways at visible locations. It strengthens two existing identifiable landmarks, and it would attract local residents and freeway travelers as well into the community. The challenge, I think, with this one would be that perhaps existing lease agreements around Moreno Valley Mall might make it a challenge to get that redevelopment, and possibly the retail could compete with new retail in the downtown center. But overall, in order to implement this concept, we would create a new center mixed use land use designation, and that would allow for the redevelopment of these existing centers. It would provide more flexibility for the property owners to integrate a mix of pedestrian-oriented commercial uses, such as retail shopping, dining, entertainment uses like a cinema, possibly offices, hotels, other recreational and cultural facilities for local residents or for people passing through the community. And in addition, housing would be allowed on the sites as well, with a permitted residential density in the range of 20 to 30 dwelling units per acre. So that means apartments or condominiums. The third concept is what we're calling corridor mixed use. And this involves creating corridors that would link the downtown center and the mixed use community centers. As you can see on the map, these are located along Sunnymead, Paris, and Alessandro, so the major transit corridors that exist in the city today. The idea would be to promote new uses, so housing, to densify those corridors and support more frequent and more reliable transit. It would promote a mix of uses, including new homes, commercial uses, and professional offices like dental offices or medical offices that cater to the everyday needs of local residents. The idea would be to focus those new retail and commercial uses in nodes at highly visible intersections along the corridor. There is an opportunity here because there are clusters of vacant and underutilized land along the corridors that could support a range of different housing types that would provide more affordable options for different people of different ages and different incomes. And as I mentioned, densification along the corridors would support more reliable and more frequent transit service. The concern here is not to oversaturate with retail, and a challenge could be along Sunnymead Boulevard, getting that development to happen because of the level of existing development. And so to implement this concept, we're proposing to create a new mixed-use land use designation called corridor mixed use. It would apply to those areas shown in purple on the map. The idea would be to allow a variety of residential uses along the corridors, and so new homes in a density range of about 15 to 25 dwelling units per acre. So that could be single-family homes, but it could be townhomes. It could also be apartments and condominiums. So a variety that caters to different needs. And then the designation would be written so as to concentrate those commercial uses. So the shops and the professional offices at key intersections, and to limit the amount of those to no more than 15% of the acreage of the block on which they're located, to avoid that oversaturation of commercial uses. The fourth concept is what we're calling business flex. This is located at the western entry to the city along Alessandro, as you can see on the map that's shown on the screen. Much of that area is located within the airport safety zones. You can see that they're outlined in yellow there. And in that area, the airport land use regulations prohibit housing, schools, hospitals, and gathering places. And so the idea here would be to, there are vacant parcels and parcels available for redevelopment. The idea would be to allow the development of flexible business uses that would be permitted under the airport land use regulations. The opportunity here is to create an inviting gateway at the western entry to the city, and so that would support one of the key planks of the vision statement. It would allow for the creation of new jobs and a flexible range of businesses, particularly those related to production, distribution, and repair. So that could involve auto repair shops, but it could also involve food production or furniture making or distribution and smaller scale distribution and warehousing that for which there is a demand in urban areas. The challenge is that, as I say, this land is located within the airport safety zone where those uses are strictly prohibited. And so we'd also need to ensure that any new uses there are compatible with existing neighborhoods to the north. And so the idea to implement this concept would be to create a new land use designation called Business Flex. And it would allow for that, for businesses involving production, distribution, and repair with some supported office space or commercial space. The use is allowed to be consistent with the applicable airport land use compatibility regulations. And what we could do is make sure that the zoning underlying would be performance-based to provide a buffer. And so that means we would look at standards for noise or standards for visual screening to ensure that those new uses are adequately buffered from the existing residential to the north of the area. And the next concept is what we're calling freeway, commercial, and office. This would be located north of Highway 60 between Merino Beach and the World Logistics Center Parkway in Theodore. The idea would be to create nodes of retail or office uses close to the freeway intersections. And there would be specific design standards here to ensure that the new development would be would blend with the rural character that's envisioned for the area. There's an opportunity here to support some key elements of the vision statement, including the idea of creating inviting gateways at highly visible locations and in order to build community identity and sense of place. There would be an opportunity to attract visitors at the city's easterly gateway and help make Moreno Valley a destination city. The challenge, I think, with this concept is that there are limited opportunities for office space over the next 10 to 15 years, and retail at this location could compete with the downtown center. So in order to implement, in order to implement this, we would create a new land use designation as well called Freeway Commercial Office. Additionally, tonight we've primarily focused on change areas that would get new land use designations, but I wanted to point out that outside of those areas, there is still significant capacity for new lower density residential housing on the order of 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. Outside of those change areas, there would still be capacity for about 4,700 new single family homes. And then the proposed land use map would allow for higher density housing focused in those mixed use areas, the centers and the corridors, in order to ensure that the city can meet the statewide requirements to provide a range of different housing opportunities for people of different ages and different income classes. And I wanted to point out as well that as we work on the housing element going forward later in the process, there'll be additional opportunities to look at density ranges and review additional site-specific locations with strategies for housing. So some of the possible residential changes that we're looking at would be in the Mead Village area, Cottonwood and Merino Beach, and Crime Area in the south, where the slight increase in the existing residential density could allow for different types of housing. We heard a lot about affordability and the need for a wider variety, and so these would be opportunities that we can explore as part of the housing element process to follow. So I wanted to let you know we did review these concepts with the GPAC last week, and in general, the GPAC was supportive of these concepts, in particular supportive of the downtown center as a central focal point for the community and a hub to other strategic areas. They also supported the land use regulations that provide flexibility for property owners that can allow for responding to market demand in the future. The GPAC urged us when we present these concepts to the City Council to make sure to tie them back to the vision to show how they would help to move that vision forward. And they encouraged us to provide specific examples of the types of land use envisioned in each area. They also emphasized going forward the need to continue to look for ways to focus development and avoid dispersing growth too widely, and also to ensure that the scale of new development north of Highway 60 is appropriate. And I think that the concepts do contain elements that speak to those concerns. But as we develop the policy framework later on in the process, we can further support those ideas. And then the final thing that the GPAC encouraged us to do was they really wanted to make sure that that market demand is a key consideration of the plan. And so we've committed to bringing back data to talk more specifically about how many housing units and how many jobs in particular locations, and tie that back to market demand. And so that is a quick introduction to the alternatives. What we'd like to do is to hear from the Planning Commission tonight, whether you have any questions about these alternatives, and also hear your comments as we get ready to present these to the City Council in June. Before I turn it back over to the chair for comments, just to give you a quick snapshot of the next steps in the process. In June, we'll be reviewing this preferred plan concept with the City Council, and we'll be relaying your feedback here tonight to the City Council. Following that City Council review, we'll be working over the summer to develop detailed build-out projections and guidance for that area plan. And then in August, we'll be meeting again with the GPAC to further refine the land use map. In the fall, there'll be a series of GPAC meetings where we review specific goals and policies, and we'll be preparing the draft housing element for City Council direction as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to the Council for questions and comments.
All right, Planning Commissioners, if you would like to start to ask questions, raise your hand, and Ashley will call upon you one at a time, or do you want to do the roll call? All right, we're going to go one by one down the roll, and that way you'll all get a chance to speak, and so Ashley will begin.
Vice Chairperson Baker.
Questions at this time?
Commissioner Sims.
The question I have is are the different concepts that were being shown, it sounds like are these all elements that are going to be incorporated, or it's the preferred is the downtown and that's it, or each of these are all going to be implemented in some kind of fashion, or policies written to incorporate into the land use?
That's correct. They all fit together. The downtown center is really the linchpin, but we talk about the community centers that complement the downtown center and the corridors that link it. And then additionally, there's the Western Gateway on Alessandro and the Easterly Gateway up there. So all of them fit together.
I do like the concept of the downtown thing. The one thing, that Moreno Valley, once we weren't a city when the raceway went away, but that was kind of a big magnet, it didn't have infrastructure to support really optimizing that facility. But at the end of the day, I have some concern about when like I saw little glimpses of there, like a Victoria Gardens, it maybe type of feel or something like that. It kind of, maybe if that's where kind of the thought process is. But there's a huge investment with the mall, and it seems to me like the mall should be a magnet, and there should be more. We do have a huge mall, not that and I don't know from how fiscally strong that mall is. It looks like pieces of it are falling apart, but as far as major tenants are leaving that thing. But that seems like a huge asset that the city has, but it's undervalued or underutilized. And if we everybody kind of migrates to the new fancy thing, that just seems like you're gonna. I would just be worried about you go and you create a whole new focus, and we already have something that's there. I don't know if it's anyhow. That would be a concern of mine. And I also have concerns about, especially along Alessandro Boulevard, where there's a lot of existing business and, commercial strip centers and whatnot. And there is the challenges, of course, because of the ALEX, the crash zones, safety zones, whatever you want to call them. But that's another thing where those businesses where it's hard for them to ever get better because there's no redevelopment. The city can't really help like, redevelopment agencies could in the past. But that's a depressed commercial or lightly used, undervalued, high traffic volume area though. And it'd be the same thing. We go create these new corridors where we're going to cluster new commercial and stuff like that. And you still don't have that portion of the city doing well. So I don't know. I'm not an economist and I'm not a land developer, but it just seems it's a great. All those ideas are good, but it creates competition amongst existing that if you compete too hard, the parts that aren't doing so well are going to get worse. Maybe that's one way that they will have to be redeveloped or revitalized into something different. But anyhow, that's probably my main concern is just it's great to do something new. It's great to create a center of focus. But what happens to the stuff that used to be the center of focus and whatnot? So anyhow,
Right.
That's my comment.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a legitimate concern. And each of those areas has a different challenge, right? The downtown center is 80% of that land is currently vacant. And so on the one sense, it's vacant land. You don't have to tear anything down to build. And so that is in some ways easier, but there's no there. There's no attraction right now. So that's its challenge. Whereas the mall, there is already development there. You can add housing, you can add office to better support the existing uses, but you do have that development. Even if it's only a parking lot, you still need to demolish it. There's challenges about leases agreements. So each of those things has its own unique opportunities and challenges. And I think you're right. There is a potential for both of those to attract regional attention. It's just a question of how do we differentiate and how do we get them to work in tandem. And so,
well, you need to add the 40,000 new homes or whatever the number was. Yeah, you need more checkbooks writing checks or credit card swipes.
Right. Yes, that's a great point. The more rooftops will support the vitality of the existing businesses and allow for the potential to attract new ones. So, yeah, those are great comments. Thank you.
Commissioner DeJournette?
I concur with Commissioner Sims. I love the downtown area and creating foot traffic, that sort of thing. I guess I kind of had a question. My question is, by sitting on the planning committee, I know that we've seen a string of projects come our way, and some of those haven't come to fruition yet. And when looking at the general plan update, I guess my question is this. You have projects that haven't come to fruition yet. They say, hey, like even tonight, we have some tentative track plan. And it says, well, right now it's consistent with the general plan. And those projects, when they came across, were consistent with the general plan that existed before. So I was wondering, as we're making changes, is there potential for conflict between projects that are coming to say, hey, it was consistent with the general plan, but we made updates to the general plan, but now your project isn't consistent with the general plan now? Is that a possibility, or is there oversight for that?
There is oversight, and staff I'm sure Chris and Patty can speak to this more clearly, but we've definitely been tracking the projects that are in the pipeline and the projects that are being proposed. And so we've been thinking about those too and confirming whether they can be accommodated in the concepts that we've been developing. When we at some point later in the summer, we're also going to have to sort of draw a line and say, look, this is where we stop making changes to the plan so that we can do the environmental analysis. So there's a bit of a pause while we do that environmental analysis. But in general, staff is monitoring, the development pipeline and the pending and potential projects to try and make sure that they're consistent with the vision, or to inform the property owners that they're not consistent with the vision, so that that conflict doesn't happen.
Okay. That was it for me.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes, I think the downtown area is a great idea. I've always been a supporter of it. I was just wondering, Moreno Valley, if you look at it, we have no skyline. I mean, if you look at Moreno Valley, you don't really, everything's pretty much flat. You can see the mountain with the M on it. I guess that could be our skyline. But we need more housing, and I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about housing above commercial in the downtown area, and if you had housing above commercial, would that create a huge giant noise factor for the people that were living in the housing that potentially could go up multiple stories, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories, whatever. Anyway, that's about all I had to say.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned height. That is something from a design perspective that we want to promote in the downtown center, because it's a little bit removed from the freeway. It's not easily visible, and so one way to build a sense of downtown, a sense of place, is to encourage little height so that the downtown center can be visible from all areas of the city. And so oh, that's the downtown. That's an important center in the community. So we want to ensure that design standards, support the creation of a downtown by supporting a little bit of height there. I think that yes, there's opportunities for the kind of vertical mixed use, the mix of uses in the same building with some commercial on the ground floor and some uses above. It could be office over retail and restaurants, or it could be as you say, housing above. And the environmental analysis will be looking at issues like noise and compatibility between the uses and suggesting policies or mitigations that could help minimize the potential for conflict or nuisance. So that's something that will be considered as part of the process as well.
Would there be mitigations that they could do in construction to cut down that noise because we want to really kind of create an area where people can really congregate and have fun, maybe have mini small music festivals or something like that.
Right.
But would that be too much for the people living above it?
Right. I think so. We'd want to. I was talking about the arrangement of uses in that downtown area, so we'd want to think about that. Where if we're going to have an outdoor concert venue, where does that go in relation to the housing? That's one way to consider it. But then also there's certain class of windows that are that keep the sound out better, and so we could look at again during the environmental analysis what is the potential for noise and make a recommendation about that rating of window to ensure that it's going to keep the indoor environment standards where they need to be and not too noisy or too much of a nuisance for the residents.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Steffen?
Yes, I just wanted to let some of the fellow commissioners, since I am on the GPAC, the mall was a concern, and it was a concern for me too, Commissioner Sims. because it is a very large area and it never really came to fruition what they wanted to put there. And a lot of it is virtually empty, but like the other people were saying, you know, it's going to be a challenge because you do have quite a bit of lease agreements with some people that are still in there. And then, you know, you would have to do a whole redevelopment on that unless you use some of the existing buildings that are there for other uses rather than just retail. I don't know if some of the big buildings like Harris's could be used for some sort of venue or something where you could, you know, but like I said, that's a developer that owns that. So he has to work in conjunction with the city. And then we did talk about promoting a link between the city and school district for education purposes for the population so they can get higher paying people out there in the workforce. And also Sunnymead Boulevard, you know, it is a concern for a lot of the residents to see that area not go down and just be forgotten. And we were concerned as planning commissioners, so the public does know that we did ask questions about how many cannabis places go in there, but it's free enterprise, and if it's zoned for it, we really don't have a reason not to let it come in. So I'm hoping that we come up with a good general plan that isn't just a wish list and not really something that is not really able to come to fruition. You know, a lot of people want this, want that, but can we really do it? And in these changing times, it almost came at the right time because we got a shot of reality of what could happen and how things can change in a matter of just months, not years, but months. So we have to figure that into our general plan. So that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brugueras.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, you said it right. There are materials out there that can keep the sound out. We know because they are expensive vehicles that people drive and they roll up their windows, they don't hear no more sound outside of that. So we do know there are materials that can be put to use when we build apartments or condominiums in that place. Now, I can see some being over the business, but I prefer individual buildings in between the businesses. So like this, if something happens to the business, nothing happens to the apartment or the condominium. So, and that structure can be built the way you mentioned it, with soundproof materials. I know they're out there because we are using them today. Now, the good thing about the city of Moreno Valley, every time we build development houses, they get sold out. If you ride around in the city of Moreno Valley and you look at all the houses that were built in 2018 and in 2019, they all have been sold. We need more housing because we are having people moving into the city of Moreno Valley because the homes are a lot less than Orange County. That's a fact. So that's a good thing for Moreno Valley. The also good thing about Moreno Valley that we're ahead of the game. We have Riverside University that is about to complete the hospital part that they built in the last several years. That's going to bring hundreds and thousands of employment of jobs for people to come and work in the city of Moreno Valley that may want to buy a house or a condominium in that downtown area close by them. Now, we also have another advantage in the city of Moreno Valley that the Kaiser project was approved. That's another 4,000 employment that's going to come when that's built out. So Moreno Valley, whatever we build will be sold. That's a fact because it's already been proven today. Everything that we build in Moreno Valley gets used, so nothing goes to waste. That's the good thing about Moreno Valley. Now, looking at the projects and all the different corridors that are going to be around the city, I would like to see transportation, whether it's RTA or City Moreno Valley buses where people can go from one area to another without paying a fare. Maybe something that will make them easier to travel from one area to another without paying and not using their vehicle that may congest the street a little bit more. Because again, when Moreno Valley gets built out in the future, we will have thousands upon thousands of people living in the city. And that's including where all the logistic projects that are coming to the city of Moreno Valley that has already been approved and those that are waiting to be approved. So Moreno Valley, that big M that we see that was mentioned, the high point of Moreno Valley, that M, is not just a big M. It means miracles in the city of Moreno Valley. When I look at that M, I look at miracles for the residents and for people that work in the city of Moreno Valley. So yes, fortunately, we have a leader. We have a mayor who has a vision for the city of Moreno Valley. And that's why we're here today, because of that vision. And I know that Moreno Valley is up to anything that we can put together for all of us, for every single person that lives in the city of Moreno Valley. We're not taking away nothing. We're just adding technology and modern things that are now available to us to make our lives better in the city of Moreno Valley. So I thank you for your hard work, Mr. Hill. I thank you for all the town meetings that you had. I was able to go some of them. People were excited to put those dots up on the map. So I like that. So I know we have a lot of people that are very, very excited for their future. Now, education is important. I hope that the board is listening to this meeting tonight, because they need to understand, if we don't have our kids prepare for what's coming to Moreno Valley with the general plan and all the logistic buildings that are being built with high-tech equipment, then we're doing something wrong at the school board level. They should be training our high schoolers for these positions, not wait until they get out of high school or do something at the last 6 months of their career and they're wondering what they're going to do. The school board needs to get involved today at this bottom breaking ground, because it's important. Because when this is all built out, some of these parents' kids are going to be 20 and 40 years old. If they were born yesterday, and when these projects are done, some of these kids are going to be 20 or 40 years old, and they will look for jobs in the city of Moreno Valley, and they're the ones that are going to continue to push Moreno Valley into the future. So I thank you, your staff, for doing what you did best for the city of Moreno Valley. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much.
Okay, I guess I'm the final one. I do have concern about the Moreno Valley Mall area, and it is such a large area, and it does have existing buildings. The more I think about it, I'm really big into the performing arts. Many of you know my background. I go to Segerstrom Hall, I go to Disney Hall, I go to all these places on a very consistent basis. The big performing arts centers are not located in the exact downtown locations. And for a reason, it's basically for ease of parking, ease of access. If you go, and I'm not knocking the Fox Theater or anything in Riverside, because I go to a lot of things there in the Symphony, but their things are all downtown, and we fight for parking when we go to those events, and sometimes it's a deterrent. I would like you to maybe consider, maybe it's too late, but perhaps that performing arts area could be moved to the Moreno Valley Mall area. It's right off the freeway, and people coming from LA or Orange County would find it easier to get off there, and there's so much parking, than to drive a little further down into a more congested area. I'm always thinking of what kinds of groups you can bring and how big they can be. That is a huge area. So the more I thought about it, and the places that I like to go to and will buy tickets to are the places that are easy to get to and that are spacious. And going into that downtown area, just the general plan that you have, it looks to me like it might not be as easy to get in and out of as it would be in the Moreno Valley Mall area, which has so many buildings that could be reconstructed, so many large buildings. So that is really the only thing that is my concern, is would that be the right spot on that big plan? The other corridors are very good. I like what you've done. I think there's a lot of good stuff there, but that is my one concern, is that performing arts area. So I will leave that with my comments. And now we will move to, are there any members of the public that would like to comment? You have 3 minutes.
At this time, if you would like to make public comments, please raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button in Zoom or by dialing *9 on your telephone. Speakers will be unmuted one at a time. There are several ways to raise your hand in Zoom. If you are participating with your mobile device, click the More button, then select Raise Hand. If you are connected to Zoom via audio on your telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. The final way to move your cursor to the bottom screen, the Zoom screen, a toolbar will appear. Click on the participant's icon. A participant list will open it. On the bottom of the participant list, there is a raise hand button. Please click that to raise your virtual hand. Once you are permitted to speak, you can view your remaining time in the broadcast and timer feed. After you have concluded your public comments, you may wish to continue the meeting live on YouTube, MV3-3, or streaming on the city website. The first speaker we have is going to be Roy Blackert.
Hello.
Welcome, Roy.
Yes. Few points. Couple of that in the downtown area. I will take you back to probably about 3 or 4 years ago, the first time I met interim city manager Mike Lee, and he just got hired in as economic director, and we were going through that. And before that, I clued him in, and many years before that, they said we should make a downtown area along the Nason corridor out there on that, all across the board. We have no downtown area in there. It should be made a big priority. We should put a lot of horsepower behind that idea to revamp Moreno Valley. Second thing, Commissioner Stefan brought up a little bit about the cooperation between the school district and Moreno Valley. And I think many of you planning commissioners, if not all of you, have heard me state this many times. We do not put together an overall concept to make all this stuff work. And if the coronavirus thing has not shown us anything, it should have shown us how we need to not only revamp our cities, but our school system to the 21st century, because the old models that we built are going to fail. I will ask the Planning Commission, have you passed a hillside ordinance revamp so we can build executive housing on our East End where it makes a lot of sense? I hear a lot of talk about high density and things, but I don't hear a lot about high quality housing. Moreno Valley has some of the best terrain views on that for that, and we're not taking full advantage of that. Commissioner Sims knows exactly, I think, what I'm talking about on this, specifically because he's a civil engineer. Third thing is, you know what? You want to make World Logistics Center or Moreno Valley a big success? Rezone that property straight up industrial. Bring back manufacturing, not only to the United States, but Moreno Valley. You've seen what's happened here lately and not being able to build stuff in our country. We could lead the way on this stuff, but we're not doing it. You do not, in a lot of cases, look to the voices and the people or have thrown them under the bus that have given you the direction and plans to make this thing work. I would hope, and I would hope all 7 of you sitting up there on the dais would get in contact with some of us that have had these concepts for many years that have went nowhere. It's time to put away all the rhetoric and the hate and everything and work to build things to make it work. If what has been happening the last 2 or 3 months hasn't woken everybody up, nothing will. Let's get it, get after it, get it done, and make it work for everyone. Thank you.
Next speaker, we have Melody L.
Okay. I just would like to question how all the road widening on the East End fits in the vision. Whose vision? Not the residents of the East End. Many residents are not even aware that this proposal is going through. It would make huge impacts on the East End residential areas. Noise, truck traffic, destruction of our beautiful hillsides, etc. Making Moreno Beach to 6 lanes over Pettit Hill is destructive to our hillsides and will bring impacts to an area that we moved to that was supposed to be residential and more quiet and rural. The noise over the hill would carry throughout the valley over here. Same with putting the high density housing at the corner of Moreno Beach and Cottonwood. That does not make sense. It is a drastic change. It was presented by staff that there were minor changes, but this is changing from R2 and hillside residential to R10 zoning in an area that's surrounded by R2 and slightly smaller lots, but nothing that dense. The people around there probably are not aware this is going on, and those residents need to be contacted, and the change needs to be presented because it is a drastic change. The community workshops happened as California was beginning to shut down. I never saw the input forms that were mentioned for the 5th workshop. I'm sure others didn't either. Again, whose vision was this? Certainly not the residents of the surveys were biased in their presentation and wording input that way. The changes would not make any area a livable community on the East End. It has the opposite effect. Residents of this area need to be informed, and the city should slow this process down and reach out to the residents of the areas that are affected by these proposals. We've been unable to easily meet with each other and talk to residents due to the California shutdown. Slow down and think this through. In light of the virus, we are seeing our world changing a bit, and maybe that needs to be incorporated. And at the GPAC meeting, I heard them mention things like slowing down, looking at things again based on the virus and how things are changing. I heard them mention trying to keep a rural feel to East End in a intelligent way, and I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see this process involve the community, better outreach to the communities so that they understand what's going on and how this process is working, and when we can give input and see the products and give further input. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Next speaker we have is Tom Thornsley.
Good evening again. Heard a lot of good things. I did like the chairman's comments about what could be a backup alternative for the mall. That could be a great place, seeing how Sears and Penny's is now going out of business too. A lot of discussions about the town center, and I am right on board with the town center as a great place to do something. One big problem is a very large portion of that property has an entitlement on it right now. The other big problem is if you really want to make this area work, it's going to have to be master planned. It's not, a general plan idea for something won't do it, because you can't allow a hodgepodge of a medical office building here and an apartment there. It's got to be fine-tuned. It's got to get all the different property owners on board to make it happen. I've told you guys time and again, I've got a lot of years in planning, and I've seen a lot of master plans, and you got to design it, and then you got to stick to it. The city has done a poor job since 2006 at sticking to its general plan. We've made more changes to this general plan that's in place now, and we've even got 2 pending projects going on. One's another industrial building south of Aldi's, another area down at Alessandro and Wilmot. A little project down there that's simply got no business proposing what they want to do in comparison to what the general plan allows. That's something I have to fault everybody at the city for not maintaining over the years. If you don't maintain your vision and stick with it and let time pass if it has to, because things won't come to fruition if you keep letting somebody come in and make a change. The best idea I can think of is work from the center of the city out. Don't start out at the east end and do one thing and the other. You've got the Sunnymead Boulevard. Years back, the city did a great job of dressing it up from the sidewalks to the middle of the street. but they didn't do a thing to the buildings out there. The businesses didn't get any help. It's still a very sad stretch of the community. The same things will happen down Alessandro and on Paris Boulevard if we don't put something together to make them be vital again. A lot of what's been discussed seems like it can do it, but I think the focuses need to be on existing and on the town center. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Carrie Finn.
Yes, hello. I'd just like to comment that I do support the city center, but as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to make sure that we don't rush past the previous attempts to create city entrances and city corridors. I think we shouldn't abandon those previous attempts. I think we need to build on them. I'd also like to reference the staff briefing on the non-agenda item, this item that we're talking about right now, and remind the planning commissioners that a general plan briefing scheduled for March for the District 2 residents was canceled. To offer perspective, each council district includes over 50,000 residents. So every district that did receive a general plan brief had an opportunity at those briefings to directly ask questions of their elected representative as well as city staff. Continuation of this general plan update should not occur until the residents of District 2 are offered that same opportunity to hear the briefing that you just heard, as well as be offered an opportunity for a comment period so that they too can provide you feedback. My last comment dealing with the land use plan for our general plan regards developers, the specific industry that we're noted for in our city. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, but per a city news service updated on May 23rd, 2020, the unemployment rate in Riverside County is now 15.3%. The chosen industry that we have given tax breaks to and support of to rezone our original land purposes for giant warehouse builds in our city, county, and region was not resilient enough to even dampen the impact of the pandemic. We have over 4,000 warehouses in our county and close to 100 warehouses in our city. And tonight you begin to consider the future of our city. But as I mentioned, I'd like to take a look at the last 20 years so that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past. When we evaluate developers such as Highland Fairview, I like to support successful projects and successful developers. But when I look at this particular developer and I consider his failure and this company's failure to build an airport project, the failure to build a millionaire's rows of houses, and the failure to win one single lawsuit for the incredibly disastrous World Logistics Project, it causes me to think, how will this developer meet any of the objectives in the vision statement of our general plan? How does the developer meet the objectives you just heard? There's no inviting gateways, no affordable residential housing, and certainly no corridors of mixed-use land. I support development and associated developers that actually have a successful track record of building what they say they're going to do. To use the Skechers project as the high bar to continue to support Highland Fairview lets the region know.
I'm sorry, Carrie, you've used up your time, but thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
We do. Next speaker is a phone number, area code 951-924-0816.
Do we have a name of a person?
No, it is just a phone number.
Yes, this is George Haig.
Thank you, George.
I sent you an email earlier today, or really the city sent it to you on my behalf, concerning the fact that nothing has been talked about in all of these meetings, and there really haven't been that many, concerning disadvantaged areas in the state. And if you look at my email and go down at the bottom, you can click on the map I sent you, and it will increase in size. And a huge area of Moreno Valley, south of State Route 60, it's considered by the state of California as disadvantaged. And this is part of the problem when we keep approving warehousing, is that the air pollution as a result of warehousing has caused a huge area of our city to be considered disadvantaged. And as a result, we are supposed to be doing certain things in the general plan process to bring about environmental justice, which is one of the elements of the general plan. And I've been to the meetings and I don't hear this happening. Under a disadvantaged community, it requires those jurisdictions like Moreno Valley to identify objectives and policies to reduce the unique or compounded health risks in disadvantaged communities. We haven't done that. You haven't done that. By means that include, but are not limited to, the reductions of pollution exposure, where we've done that in this process, including the improvement of air quality and the promotion of public facilities, food access, safe and sanitary homes, and physical activity. These things are not happening in this process. This has not been explained to you. The map I sent you, which shows a red area over a large portion of the area south of State Route 60 as disadvantaged, should be overlaid on the maps that you're seeing tonight. So you can say, well, what are we doing in these areas to improve all the things I just mentioned? Reduction of pollution exposure, including improvement of air quality. It's not being done. You just want to keep compounding the problems on the disadvantaged communities. And you're not doing much in the way of the surveys either. Hopefully you have read the surveys. In the first survey, they would not include anything about warehousing. But when given the chance to write their own comments about what they disliked about warehousing, almost 100 people on their own said that's the main thing that they disliked about Moreno Valley was the warehousing, logistics centers, and the truck traffic. Please look at that survey and look for the parts, and maybe I'll try to encourage the city to send them to you. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, George. Anyone else?
We do. Our next speaker is actually an applicant as well. David Slauson, were you looking to speak on this item?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a couple things. First, I take umbrage and offense to Mr. Hill's comments about baby boomers being seniors. I don't consider us seniors yet, for some reason. Okay, I maybe prefer born again hippies. I don't know, something like that. But a couple comments on the plan. I appreciate the vision. I like the land use plan, and I think it can really revitalize the city. I just look forward to seeing the other elements of the general plan addressing the land use element. A comment about Sunnymead Boulevard. I would recommend that west of Heacock Street, that not be considered for a mixed use or residential type of use. Anything west of Heacock Street is probably more appropriate for commercial uses only. I can understand that east of Heacock Street, where there are a number of vacant properties, and I've known of different property owners who would have that interest in residential, and it would seem to mix with the existing residential uses. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slauson. Any other people waiting in the waiting room?
We do. We have three more. I have Frank Sparks.
Hi, everybody. Could you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. So I'm a resident out here on the east side of Moreno Valley. I definitely think that the east side would be a good place to expand and either some more commercial, getting the people out here to invest a little bit more on this side. I see that the east side has so much potential, with the hospitals coming in. We have potential by the lake. I think that's a great area to invest in. towards the Lake Paris area. And I don't know what could be done, but it would seem that the Lake Paris, if there's any possibility for the city to work with them to see if there's any investments in there, I think that would bring a lot of foot traffic and a lot of economic advantage towards this way, and at the end of the day, tax dollars to the city of Moreno Valley if we could take advantage of that big lake that we have here. Other than that, I've been a resident for 35 years. I'm starting to get more involved. These meetings, people are starting to hear about them, and I wasn't quite sure about what they were talking about. They're talking about some people, environmentalists, trying to hold down the city. And I got on, and I'm hearing exactly what they're talking about. You hear these people that are just talking about slowing things down and throwing what they say are called CEQA lawsuits, which is in a sense slowing things down. For what reason, I don't know. Instead of coming up and just saying, you know what, this is what we want for our city, and say, hey, okay, well, let's make that. I mean, Moreno Valley is massive. Let's make this city, we like this rural area. Let's stick to that. Okay, keep that rural, but don't affect everybody else in the city. You're slowing things down is the reason why Moreno Valley is in the way in the situation it is. They complain about a man that's trying to build this warehouse that would bring millions of dollars to the city. And to me, at the end of the day, it's starting to sound very xenophobic because they repeat the same thing. A man has a LEED compliant building, which isn't easy to get, and yet they complain about air pollution. It's like platinum or gold standard LEED, which isn't easy to do. Check all the other warehouses. I've never seen them use another developer's name other than this other person's name, which at this point is starting to sound very racial and xenophobic. The man is Jewish, and it seems like you're going after a Jewish man all the time. These people better check themselves, because people are starting to wake up and see what's going on here. And I think it's very shameful that these people come up here and trying to use all these lawsuits that are very vague anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Sparks. Your time is up. Next person, please.
Next speaker is Chris Torres.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, my name's Chris Torres. I've been a resident and homeowner in Moreno Valley for over 32 years, and I am not paid by anybody or any organization to speak my own mind here about things. So anyway, I want to start off also by saying that Mr. Hill mentioned making Moreno Valley a destination city. Well, I'll tell you what, I moved out here for the wide open spaces and the ruralness and everything, and massive amounts of warehouses are not going to make Moreno Valley a destination city. Kind of make people want to go away, not come in. But and let me tell you, years ago when we were talking about this land use back there, when all the talk first began of the warehouses on the East End, I wrote in one of my letters that I had written to the city council and the planning commission at the time, because it was mentioned in the past before that we weren't coming up with solutions. Well, you only 3 minutes does not allow you that much time to talk about everything you want to say. But anyway, I did mention that that area would be better represented as a destination city, as Mr. Hill mentioned, by having getting a minor league baseball stadium, which could also be used to host concerts, farmers markets, swap meets, even graduations, because we all know that the crowd that goes to our local high school graduations can barely be contained in those football stadiums anymore. So that's a thing. And then also having that area have more of a park area similar to Yucaipa Regional Park, and with the trails and access to the Lake Paris and stuff, I think that would make it more a destination area than having massive amounts of warehouses. So also, I think all those warehouses and everything in more high density housing will invite more crime. I think we have a big crime problem here in Moreno Valley. So I think that's also why the police doesn't even respond to all the fireworks here, because fireworks are out of control in this city. I have neighbors whose fireworks displays rival the city's. And so anyway, but they're chasing after all the crime here. But that anyway, the minor league stadium, parks and stuff like that, they could be shuttles. They go from the Metrolink station when there's an event to go out there to reduce traffic and pollution and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's about my 3 minutes. So, and the lead in the warehouses is not negating the additional traffic those create too. So I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, we have one more speaker, Brandon Karn.
Oh. Am I unmuted?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, I have an echo from the last speaker somehow, so I'm hearing her still. I'll go ahead and begin though. I wanted to mention during this process, it was very apparent. I watched all 4 of the GPAC meetings. Very few of the planning. Oh, sorry.
Brandon, do you have another device on that's streaming the meeting, perhaps?
No, I don't think so. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I have an echo. Am I back at 3 minutes?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, we're going to reset you. Just 1 second, sir.
All right. All right, am I clear to go again?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I was just mentioning, I've been part of all 4 GPAC meetings, watching them. I've attended multiple sessions that the city did live to give feedback into the process. The GPAC is considering some of what the city is doing, but I really feel like in the process, they did not consult enough businesses to give their opinion and their interest in what the city's long-term development would be. We've largely only heard from Highland Fairview and Pacific Communities because they donate such large amounts of money to the city and to the council, who then appoints people who are all affiliated, like this planning commission with super PACs that they've used in the past. I made this criticism during the World Logistics Center's EIR revision. There's not much objectivity or transparency in this, and I find it to be very unethical and inappropriate. Regardless of that though, one of the things that I think the city has not been focusing on is what recreational opportunities we can bring to Moreno Valley. It's really shameful that young people here, maybe elementary school age or older, do not have a lot of opportunities to do things, and that's in general for most residents. It's elderly, it's retired, it might be anything else. We need to consider more public facilities, more park and rec facilities built in the city. I was saying at the last meeting, you can go to cities like Yucaipa, Marietta, and they have larger and more abundant recreational resources than we do as a city. And they have smaller populations and they're younger than Moreno Valley. We need to change that and reverse that. We're so large, we should be one of the epicenters of the Inland Empire of places to see and visit. In regards to redevelopment, I do support the densifying of urban corridors along Sunnymead, Paris, and other areas. My suggestion for doing that was to utilize the coming medical corridors and medical centers that are approved and being built, like March Life Care, the medical center near Canyon Springs, Kaiser's expansions, the Riverside University Health Center near the city center. Those could be the hearts and economic centers of building around and encouraging investment in the city. And we're not really giving those much thought or much discussion. Some of them are outside of the city limits, like they're on the March JPA land or they're in Riverside. But those are still things that are going to affect and employ Moreno Valley residents. We're really not giving them much thought or much designation of what they can become in our ultimate plan. I think you should slow it down just a little bit, just a tiny bit, to discuss those parts a little more. Overall, though, I generally think the zoning is going all right. I just think we should hear a little bit more discussion of alternate uses, that's all.
Thank you very much, Brandon. Do we have any other speakers?
We do not, but at this time, I would like to go through the guests that are on there just to make sure.
Just to make sure.
I have a Deborah Craig. Deborah Craig, were you looking to speak on this item?
No, well, let's see, am I on now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I do want to just say a quick comment that I have a lot of concerns also about the Moreno Valley Mall. And I really commend Patricia Korzak and Commissioner Sims for bringing it up because all of these grand designs are wonderful, but man, retail is not doing well. And we really, we can't put all these bigger and better facilities out there and have this, white elephant in our city called the mall. So I just want to commend, and I do hope the Planning Commission, takes heed of that. That's it. Thank you.
Next guest I have is Gilbert. Gilbert, would you like to speak on this item? One more time, that was Gilbert. Thank you, Gilbert. We're going to move on to, looks like we have a JT. JT, would you like to speak on this item? Last time for JT. Moving on, we're going to move to Ollie. Ollie, if you would like to speak on this item, now is your time. Last call for Ollie. And I believe that's all our speakers for the night for that item.
Thank you very much. With this, we are going to finish up the comments. Mr. Hill, would you like to make any closing comments to us?
No, I don't, other than to say thank you very much. I think these are very helpful, very thoughtful comments, and we will make sure to reflect them to the City Council when we present the preferred plan to them in June. So thank you again for your participation and these interesting comments.
Thank you very much. With that, we are now going to move on to our public hearing items. We're going to start with item number 1, the tentative track map 37580. May we have the staff report, please?
Thank you. The staff report will be presented by Associate Planner Gabriel Diaz.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting the approval for tentative track map 37580 to subdivide 2.18 acres into 6 single-family residential lots. The project is located on the north side of Bradshaw Circle, just northeast of Merino Beach and Cactus Avenue. The site is currently zoned R5 single-family residential. All the surrounding parcels around there are also zoned single-family residential. The project site is surrounded by vacant land to the east and west and an existing single-family home, residential subdivision to the north, and a combination of single-family residence and vacant land to the south across Bradshaw Circle. Access to each one of these new lots will be provided by Street A, which runs north and south. Street A connects to Bradshaw Circle to the south. Both are private streets. The project as designed and conditioned will comply with all applicable city zoning and development regulations. Planning staff has reviewed and determined that the project qualifies as a Class 31 categorical exemption infill development project section 15332 under the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. Now, this has been a change from the staff report, which stated this was a Class 15 categorical exemption, minor land divisions. Public notice was sent to all property owners, posted on site, and published in the local newspaper. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the recommended actions as posted by staff. Oh, sorry, I do have one neighbor did call in, and he requested a copy of the map and conditions of approval, and I emailed that to him. Thank you. This concludes staff presentation. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the commissioners? We'll go down the list. I think it's easier that way.
Commissioner Brugaris? And actually, I apologize. It looks like Mr. Vice Chairperson Baker has his hand up. Would you like to start with him?
Start with him if he has his hand up.
Vice Chairperson Baker?
Well, didn't we visit this issue maybe a year ago or so, or is it something different now? Seems like when I went out there, the same gates were up there that we went the last time to see the Bradshaw Circle.
That is correct. Bradshaw Circle is a private street, and I believe there's a house under development, and I think that's just security gating. But there was a tract that came in not that long ago, and that was reviewed by you guys, and this is just to the west of this development, this proposed development.
So this is a different, okay, I understand that now. Thank you.
Commissioner Brugaris? One moment, please, Mr. Brugaris. There you go.
At the end of the street, I'm looking at the map, but somehow I think you put up the wrong map a little while ago. So at the end of the street is going to be a large turnabout where they're going to be able to have the fire trucks be able to go up the street and make a turnabout and come back down the same way they went up.
That is correct. It's a cul-de-sac.
Right, the cul-de-sac. Is it wider at the end? You know, at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it meets the requirements of the fire department for appropriate turnaround and safety for the neighborhood.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that the at least the ladder truck, because sometimes we don't get to see the ladder truck, especially in Moreno Valley, because like mentioned a little while ago, we don't have high buildings. You know, 3 stories, 4 stories, the biggest building in Moreno Valley. So we don't see the ladder. See, I'm thinking of the ladder where it needs more turning to make that turnabout. But if there's enough for that, I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Stefan? Just a moment, Commissioner Stefan. Okay, you are unmuted.
Okay, I couldn't hear that there was one resident that sent in a letter, and was he in opposition to the project? I couldn't understand if he was or not.
No, I got an email from a resident, Jason Neighbor, and they just wanted information on the project, which I provided this map that you see up here and the conditions of approval. There was no feedback on if they were pro or against the project.
Okay,
I did invite them to the meeting and made them aware.
Okay, I wasn't sure if they were opposed or for it. I was wondering if they had opposition to it. What was the concern? So that's all. I don't really have any other comment.
Commissioner Harris? Just one moment, Mr. Harris, while we unmute you.
I was wondering what the square footage of these homes were going to be, and number of bedrooms and bathrooms in this area, and what the price point would be.
There is no current homes proposed for the site. That is part of the conditions of approval, that the submit their models for review and approval prior to construction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and there's no price point at this point. I guess if they don't know what they're going to build, they don't know what they're going to charge. And will this 6-home cul-de-sac, will it have an HOA?
Yes, that is part of the conditions of approval. It is a private street and there is a water quality basin that needs to be maintained.
Okay. That's all.
Commissioner DeJournette?
No questions or comments.
Commissioner Sims?
Just for clarification, what was the new exemption that were being proposed for this? For CEQA?
We're doing the infill development project section 15332 under the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act.
I like the projects. I do like the project. I have a fundamental issue though. With the use of there's an extensive use. It seems like with the uses of categorical exemptions or statutory exemptions from the CEQA standpoint, and I guess I'm, where there's clear, very very clear utilization of that. I don't understand why a simple project like a little tentative track like this couldn't do a negative declaration or it seems like instead of having the developer do the CEQA work, the city staff is saying, no, don't worry about doing the CEQA, and we're going to find a categorical exemption. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it or out of line saying that, but I am not going to vote for this project because I don't agree. I don't understand the use of this categorical exemption. And if I would ask that in the future that staff provide as an attachment every time there is a categorical exemption to a project that staff is making it as a declaration in the staff report for us to adopt or to approve, is that they provide the statutory or the exemption and then go through an analysis and demonstrate exactly how the project fits the exemption. If that's the way we're going to do it, instead of doing a formal CEQA document that the developer has to provide.
Vice Chairperson, or I'm so sorry, we've already had Mr. Baker. That leaves Chairperson Corsick.
I have no comments at this time. At this time, would the applicant like to speak?
Yeah, my name is Michael Delatorre. I just want to thank the commission and staff on working with me on this map. I'm pleased to be moving forward, and again, was just here to answer any questions that may come about. I'm excited to continue the process to move on to final map, and at one time, at some point, complete some homes there in the city.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will now open public testimony. Do we have any people in line for public comments?
If you would like to make public comments on this item, please raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button in Zoom or by dialing *9 on your telephone. Speakers will be unmuted one at a time. There are several ways to raise your hand in Zoom. If you are participating with your mobile device, click the More button, then select Raise Hand. If you are connected to Zoom via audio on your telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. The final way is to move your cursor to the bottom screen, Zoom screen. A toolbar will appear. Click on Participants icon. A participant list will open it. On the bottom of the participant list, there is a raise hand button. Please click that to raise your virtual hand. Once you are permitted to speak, you can view your remaining time in the broadcast and timer feed. After you have concluded your public comments, you may wish to continue the meeting live on YouTube, MV-3, or streaming on the city website. At this time, it doesn't look like we have any hands raised. We do still have some guests in the Zoom. I'll go ahead and call them out, yes. I'm going to start with Gilbert. Gilbert, if you would like to speak on this item.
A boy, a girl.
And I have JT. JT, if you would like to speak on this item, now is your time. Last call for JT. I'm going to move on to Carrie Fenn. Carrie Fenn, if you would like to speak on this item. Last call for Carrie Fenn. We have no speakers.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to move on to deliberations. So now is the time for the commissioners to have a discussion. We can start this out by going down the roll, but at the end, we can also have some interaction.
Madam Chair, if I could make a comment regarding the question having to do with categorical exemptions.
Absolutely.
It's very common when a lot of what we see is infill development, parcels that are largely surrounded by existing development. For example, in this case, there's existing single-family homes to the north, to the south, and while there might be vacant property directly adjacent, there's additional development beyond that. So it meets the intent of an infill categorical exemption. And we do see a lot of that in the city. So a lot of the properties that we do see developing are infill. Staff considers that appropriate, and we can provide more information on the CEQA guidelines going forward. But there are some of that information is in the report and in the resolutions.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, did that answer your question?
I just think there should be additional information and use of categorical exemption. And I mean, I work for a public agency, and it's always my dream when we're doing a project to not have to do a CEQA document because it avoids a big hassle. So I get it. I understand the reason for it. I'm not saying that it's inappropriate or not. I just find that at the last minute of the change a CEQA document. I don't even know if I haven't even looked at the resolution to see what it reflects in the resolution. If the resolution has to be revised or whatnot, it just to me it just seems like on a go forward basis that perhaps if the staff is going to use in the staff report if there's going to be a utilization of the categorical exemption instead of just referencing it by a sentence or two, is to give a little bit more meat to the analysis of why it's appropriate. I think this, I'll use my time while I'm right here. I think it's a great project. There's nothing wrong with the project. It looks like it's well designed and whatnot. But I just from right now, I have doubt on the categorical exemption utilization.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bergeras.
Chair Kozak, are we allowed to question the applicant?
I thought we asked for that, but that's okay. We can, sure. Is the applicant still on? Guess not.
He's here. I think we're just trying to get him unmuted.
Okay.
Yes, I'm still here.
Mr. Bergeras, you can ask him your question.
Thank you, ma'am. I have a question for you, sir. I'm looking at the lots, and they're pretty good sized lots. Are you going to develop them all the same plan, or are you gonna sell the lots for custom-made houses when you decide to come back again?
So currently the plan is for myself to move forward on developing. I believe per the city's code, they require, I think, multiple housing facades. And so anything I propose, again, would comply with all rules and regulations that the city provides.
So the lots are not gonna be sold individually to buyers, right?
Correct.
Okay, good enough. Thank you, sir.
Okay, now we can go back to deliberations.
Commissioner Stefan?
I'm kind of with Sims on this one. We use that an awful lot, and I think we should kind of get additional information on it, because it seems like every time we do something like this, they, put in there that I don't know, it kind of, he made a little more point on it. And when something isn't just really clear cut and put in there, I think we need to get a little more information on the reasoning for using that. The project itself seems okay. I don't have a problem with the project. It's just the utilization of the environmental provision in there.
Chair Corsick, would you like me to provide more specifics?
It just seems when we do these, it'll say the same thing. The wording is more or less just kind of glossed over, and it just doesn't give us a whole lot of information.
Okay, let's go ahead. You can make some.
So if I could explain the particular exemption in this case that Gabriel described, it's an exemption for infill developments, and there are 5 criteria listed under the CEQA guidelines. And to be clear, going forward, we'd be happy to provide you with more information so you don't just see a title, you see the criteria that are listed. In this case, the first one is that the project is consistent with the general plan, which it is. Secondly, the project occurs within city limits on a project site of no more than 5 acres, substantially surrounded by urban uses, which is the case here. Third, the project does not have value as habitat for endangered or threatened species, which is the case. Approval of the project, fourthly, would not result in any significant effects related to traffic, noise, etc. It's a small enough project, we wouldn't consider that to be a concern. And lastly, that the site can be served by all required utilities and public services. So if staff finds that it meets those criteria, we can provide the more specifics so you understand what goes into each exemption going forward. But this is a common exemption to use for projects that are surrounded by development.
Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, maybe that's why we're questioning it, because it is used an awful lot.
Well, I think maybe moving forward, if we could have more information up front, it might help. I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Stefan. Looks like Commissioner Sims has his hand raised.
Right. So a particular note on this, if you look at the staff report under the CEQA documentation, the staff report calls for a different categorical exemption. And that's what drew my attention to this earlier on this. So it's this move from, I think it was a class 15 exemption for less than 4 lots, where the exemption that was being specified was called out in staff report as a categorical exemption for a project creating less than 4 divisions. Here, this is a subdivision with 6 divisions plus a lettered lot, and so that clearly was not an applicable exemption to be used. Here, we're hearing at the time of the meeting a change in the categorical exemption clause. I'm not saying that I'm not suggesting that it's not. I'm not suggesting that this new one that we're being told right now is inaccurate. I'm just saying in the future that perhaps when the use of categorical exemption, that the staff report reflects what the exemption is being called for, and then do the analysis to comply to make sure that the exemption being used is compliant with the project that it's being used for.
That sounds fair enough.
Absolutely.
All right. Next.
Commissioner Harris? Just a moment, Mr. Harris.
Why couldn't could a negative declaration work okay with this particular project?
There's no reason you couldn't, but the question would be, why would you if there is an exemption available, unless you have reason to think that it would generate traffic that would, be excessive, or cause impacts in one of the other CEQA categories, and there's a list of, I think, about 17 categories. If it doesn't, if there's no reason to think there is, then you utilize the exemption. There's no point to, or there's no real value to going through the exercise just for the point of doing it. It's a small subdivision, and we wouldn't expect it to impact any of the categories that are called for under CEQA. Using the 6-lot subdivision as an example, the exact same property, were they doing 4 lots instead of 6, would qualify. So it was a minor discrepancy, and we should have caught that, but oftentimes there are multiple exemptions that would apply to the same project. So it's not uncommon, and unless you have reason to think there will be some kind of impact that you need to address, then we would just normally use the exemption.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner DeJournette?
No, let me see. You said 5 criterias for CEQA exemption. I think you said consistent with the general plan, less than 5 acres, something about habitat and excessive traffic. There was one more and I didn't catch that one.
That the site can be adequately served by utilities and public services.
By utilities, okay. No, that was it. I just couldn't remember that last one. Thank you. I have no other comments.
Vice Chairperson Baker?
Infill project, and we always have these CEQA deals that's been going on for a number of years since I've been on here, and maybe we need a little more clarification, but I think we're getting in the weeds on this one, but I'd like to see it go forward, and I'll vote for it.
Madam Chair.
Well, I think since several commissioners have had issues with it, that we probably maybe should improve the way we're doing this up front. But I certainly see that it isn't a setback to moving this project forward. It looks like a good project. I don't think it's the problem of the applicant. I think it's just a little bit of the paperwork, and I'm going to vote for approval. Are there any other comments from commissioners pertaining to this issue?
No.
Okay.
I see Commissioner Baker's hand.
Well, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, we recommend approve resolution 2020-04, and then also certify that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, under CEQA guidelines, section 15315, class 15, minor line divisions.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair Baker, we were going to make that 15332.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And we'll change the resolution accordingly.
Okay, we're gonna make that what, 15?
Yes, 15332, the exemption.
Okay, got it, okay.
Thank you.
You want me to read that again or not?
No, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, then also number 2 is approve PEN 18 mark 3, is it 0154, tentative track map 37580, subject to the conditions of the approval included in Exhibit A.
Do we have a second?
We have a second from Commissioner Brugueras.
Okay. Let's call for the vote.
Commissioner Brugueras,
Yes.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner DeJournette,
Yes.
Commissioner Sims,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Baker,
Yes.
Chairperson Corsick.
Yes, motion's carried. Would the staff like to do a wrap-up?
Yes, please. The Planning Commission's action on this item is appealable. Any interested party wishing to appeal the decision would need to file the appeal with the city clerk within 10 days after the decision of the Planning Commission. The appeal should be filed in writing stating the basis for the appeal and should be accompanied by the appropriate fee. If an appeal was received, it would be slated for consideration by the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to our final item, item number 2, tentative track map 37429. May we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. The applicant is requesting approval for a tentative parcel map 37429 to subdivide 1.39 acres into 2 single-family residential lots. The project is located on the north side of Angela Way between Indian and Shunning Court. The site is zoned residential 5 single-family, and the surrounding parcels around there are also zoned single-family residential R5. The project site is vacant of structures surrounded by a combination of vacant land and existing single-family homes to the west and single-family residential subdivisions to the north, south, and east. Access to the project will be for the 2 parcels will be from Angela Way. No new streets are being provided by this parcel map. The project as designed and conditioned will comply with all applicable city zoning and development regulations. Planning staff has reviewed and determined that the project qualifies as a Class 15 categorical exemption, minor land use divisions, Section 15315 under the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. Again, this is a smaller project. It's only 1.39 acres, and you could argue to use the infill exemption on this also. Notification, public notice was sent to all property owners, posted on site, and published in the local newspaper. I did get a call from a neighbor across the street, and he was concerned about his taxes going up possibly, or if he had to pay for any type of improvements as part of this development. And I let him know that as the project develops, there's no development currently, but as they construct, the property owner for that development is the one that would be paying for that development to occur. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the recommended actions as proposed by staff. Thank you. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions?
Are there any commissioners for staff at this point?
I don't have anyone's hand raised.
If you'd like to if you have a question, just raise your hand this time. No, nothing raised. Okay. At this time, would the applicant like to speak?
Dave Slauson.
I know he was on earlier.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. I'm David Slauson. I'm representing the property owners. There are 2 brothers who are hoping to subdivide the property and build 2 separate homes. And based on the size of the property, we were not required to do, it was exempt from CEQA analysis. And We're not required to do a water quality management plan based on the square footage. And we would request your support on the project.
Thank you. At this point, are there any commissioners' questions of the applicant? This is your time to ask the question. Do we have anyone with their hand raised?
Commissioner Harris?
Yes, I noticed the houses look kind of boxy towards the front of the lots, the proposed lots. And then there's kind of a large rear yard. What is the square footage of that house? Are they exactly the same?
This is Gabriel.
Yes.
This is but what is it?
Currently, this is just a parcel map. The building footprint was just shown where you could put a home on this property.
Okay.
Correct. So the property owners had preliminary layouts for home sizes, but that's not set. What we have here is a proposal to subdivide the property into two separate lots so that each can come in separately with their proposed house plans and plot plans.
Okay. Well, a lot of times we found where the homes are smaller and the lot is big, that people have a rough time keeping up, maintaining the property. This isn't going to be a problem with this?
When the homes are actually developed, there is this used to be a much larger lot. What you see is there's an older existing home out there, and they have a front yard. Their front yard won't be that big to maintain, but it's like every homeowner. You have a front property, and you should maintain it, and that's part of being a homeowner.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Steffen?
Yes, I have a question. The existing home that's there right now, is that being utilized? Is somebody living there?
That is a separate parcel, and when I drove by there, it did look like there was somebody living there.
Oh, so it does not belong to the two brothers.
I believe that is a different owner.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I was wondering why there was such a strange configuration between the two lots. I thought they owned the whole parcel there. And I thought maybe there was a existing person living there. I didn't even know maybe one of the brothers lived there right now. Do they plan on living on these lots themselves, or are they just going to build and then sell?
I believe Dave Slauson could speak on the owner's behalf.
Yes, based on the conversations that I've had with the two brothers and their spouses, they plan on building two separate homes and living side by side on the two separate properties.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I used to live next door to my mom, so it's kind of nice that they want to live next to each other. Okay, that was my question. I just wasn't quite sure if they were going to end up selling or whatever. Okay, that's it.
Are there any other commissioners with their hands raised?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, at this time, we're now going to open public testimony. And I know you have to read the entire statement again.
At this time, if you would like to make public comments, please raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button in Zoom or by dialing *9 on your telephone. Speakers will be unmuted one at a time. There are several ways to raise your hand in Zoom. If you are participating with your mobile device, click the More button, then select Raise Hand. If you are connected to Zoom via audio on your telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. The final way is to move your cursor to the bottom screen, the Zoom screen. A toolbar will appear. Click on Participants icon. The participant list will open. On the bottom of the participant list, there is a Raise Hand button. Please click that to raise your virtual hand. Once you are permitted to speak, you can view your remaining time in the broadcast and timer feed. After you have concluded your public comments, you may wish to continue the meeting live on YouTube, MV3, or streaming on the city website. At this time, I only have two speakers or two guests left in the participant list. I have a JT. JT, if you would like to speak, this is your time. Last call for JT. I have Carrie Thin. Carrie Thin, if you would like to speak, this is your time.
No, thank you.
Thank you. I have no other speakers or guests in the participant list.
Okay, well, I think at that last move here that we will move on to deliberations. So, commissioners, let's deliberate.
Commissioner Brugueras?
I was able to go by the site, and it's a pretty big site. It's a big lot. I just want to know which one of the two won the flip, because one lot is bigger than the other. And if these are two brothers, that's somebody's gonna have a 3/4 and the other one's gonna have a little bit more than half. So, but they are big lots. I hope they built wisely and maintain it, like Mr. Harris mentioned. It'll look good in the neighborhood, something new. And good luck. I hope the best for the two brothers. I'm glad they're gonna stay together, side by side, help each other as family. Thank you.
Commissioner Steffen?
Yes, I think it's for what they're going to be doing with it. I think it'll be a good project for them, and they know what they're getting into. And it is a big lot, but seeing that they will be the people living there, I don't have a problem with it, because I think they've probably thought it all out. And what better than to have the homeowner living there that actually owns the parcel. So I think I'm for this.
Commissioner Harris? Just a moment, Mr. Harris.
I'm sorry. The two small boxes, if they wanted to make these homes larger, they could set them back further onto the lot. I guess it just depends on how much space they need for their families. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
Commissioner DeJournette?
I say, wow, good luck. It just looks like a lot of property to maintain in the back. It seems like, wow, look like you could fit 4 or 5 homes on those lots, maybe 6 homes on those lots, man. I mean, just a suggestion, invite a developer, buy your 2 homes, and man, you could get you probably get another 4 homes in there and make that property really worth a lot of money. But more power to you. It's your lot. I think it's great. It's fantastic. Wow, it's going to be, if you develop that land back there, this is going to be beautiful. If you can get trees and grass and stuff back there, it's going to be fantastic. But I just think it's a lot of property to maintain behind those houses. So good luck.
Commissioner Sims?
A good project, and wish them all the best of luck.
Vice Chairperson Baker.
Project, I see a putting green going in the back there. It's a great infill project. We need that in that area, so I'm going to vote for it.
Chairperson Corsick.
I think it's a nice project. It's a very good track map, and so I am going to vote for it. And I think a big swimming pool in the back might be a good idea. All right. With that, I'm looking for a motion from any of the commissioners. Please raise your hand if you'd like to make the motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sims.
Recommend that the Planning Commission approve Resolution 2020-19.
Looks like we have a second from Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Okay, let's call for the vote.
Commissioner Brugueras?
Yes.
Commissioner Stephen?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner DeJeanette?
Yes.
Commissioner Sims?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Baker?
Yes.
Chairperson Corsick?
Yes, motion carries. Could we have a staff wrap-up, please?
Certainly. Again, this action by the Planning Commission tonight is an appealable action. Anybody wishing to file an appeal would need to do so within 10 days of the decision, filed with the city clerk in writing stating the specific reasons for the appeal and accompanied by the appropriate fee. If an appeal was received, it would be slated for consideration by the City Council. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is other commission business. At this time, we have no items. The next item on the agenda is staff comments. Do we have any staff comments at this time?
I do not.
I have nothing.
We're moving along here. Next item on the agenda is planning commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioner comments at this time? Anyone have their hand raised?
We have Commissioner Brugueras.
I recommend that we follow up with Commissioner Sims' request that we add additional information. I learned a lot this evening about the categories of 5 acres or less. That was a good topic. I learned quite a bit, and it only be fair to have a document like that in the packet so we can all understand why this project or the future projects will be exempt from sequence. Anyway, it was a good one. Thank you, Mr. Sims, for the question, and I learned quite a bit. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Commissioner Sims.
I apologize for being a pick and fly specs from Pepper tonight. I've done that though in the past on the categorical exemptions for in the past. So I apologize for that, but I think it would be nice to be able to have the additional clarifications, a little bit, a few more sentences in the staff report on the justifications for the categorical exemption. We don't do it every day, so it'd be helpful for us.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, ma'am.
Well then, at this time, the Planning Commission is adjourned at 9:30 p.m. to our next regular meeting of June 11th, 2020. Thank you all.